Seeing we have a quorum, let us stand for our invocation to be led by School Board Member Michael Goday and the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by School Board Member Jill Dyson.
Our Heavenly Father, we beseech Thee to rule the hearts of all those who bear the authority of government, and especially this board, that we may be led to wise decisions and right actions for the benefit of our students, our families, our staff, and our community. In your name we pray. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. How you doing today?
Okay, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
District 9, President Tatman. District 4, Vice President Collins.
Present.
District 1, Mr. Blue.
Here.
District 2, Mr. Lannis.
Present.
District 3, Mr. Howard. District 5, Ms. Ware Jackson.
Present.
District 6, Ms. Dyson.
Present.
District 7, Mr. Goday.
Present.
District 8, Ms. Bernard. We have a quorum.
Moving forward then with item B1, receiving as information, an update from the superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Just wanted to make a few announcements. Earlier today, we had the pleasure of holding a press conference to announce that our district was awarded $3.5 million in grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to support our work in math equity. New York City Public Schools and the East Baton Rouge Parish Schools were the only school districts selected in the country for this grant. We will be partnering with LSU and Dreambox to implement this pilot program that will not only support our work, but also the work in the country. I'd like to just also recognize two of our team members that did outstanding work for that. Our Chief of Accountability, Dr. Andrea Okoski, and our Director of Grants, Ms. Susan Navarro, which I'd like to give them a hand because without them, we couldn't have made this possible. Thank you for your leadership in this work. Upcoming events, this coming Monday, November 7th, we have the pleasure of partnering to host over 30 superintendents from around the nation who will be attending the Jason Learning and AASA STEAM Consortium being held at LSU. We will have an opportunity to share information on our focused choice schools and our Pathways to Bright Future program. We always feel it's good when we are getting folks to visit our city and, more importantly, learn about the great practices that we do in partnership with our universities and our community. So we're excited about that. School office closure. We'd like to remind everyone that the district will be closed on Tuesday, November 8th, in observance of Election Day. We will reopen on Wednesday, November 9th. And last but not least, I wanted to provide the opportunity for our Chief of Accountability and Assessment, Ms. Andrea Okoski, to bring us up, to bring the board up on a little bit of our scorecard and where we are with our young people as we continue to make progress academically in our district. Andrea?
Thank you, Dr. Narcisse, and thank you to all of you for allowing me another opportunity to be the face of the data for our school system and our continuous improvement process. So when we start to think about our strategic plan and our KPIs, or key performance indicators, it's important to remember about how they are organized. And as a board, we establish, as a board and as a system and as a team, we establish 4 key cornerstones: student achievement, exemplary customer service, operational excellence, and employee development. All of our work and our continuous improvement journey and our strategic plan initiatives center around these 4 key areas. So when we talk about our key performance indicators, or our KPIs that are built into this district strategic plan, we have a scorecard. This scorecard is organized around these 4 areas. Our data sets are available at monthly intervals. Some of them are quarterly, some of them are semi-annual, and others are annual reporting. Staff maintains a KPI calendar where we assign different metrics to different staff members, team members, or departments who help us monitor, track, and collect our data, and then we roll it up onto the online scorecard. For those viewing at home, the icon in the top right corner of your screen is on our district website's homepage. Please click on it, and it takes you straight to our scorecard. At the bottom, the last bullet, you'll see that year 1 data is live and complete. We closed it out in July this summer. And then year 2 KPI data has already begun to be populated for the current school year. So what we were asked to do tonight is to take you through just a quick annual review of the 25 KPIs. Obviously, for the sake of time, we won't dig into each of the 25, but we do want to share with the public and with everyone how we did in our first year of our first ever scorecard. Again, everything that you see on your screen is live on our website. So under the Student Achievement Cornerstone, there are 10 KPIs. The first one starts with early childhood. And so you see we track early childhood seats, and we did see an increase there. The next couple are with our internal benchmark assessments. The second is for K-3 literacy. Items 3 and 4 are our internal ANET benchmark assessments. 1.5 tracks ACT measures across the district, and you can see the baseline that existed before the strategic plan and then where the data fell at the end of the school year. Continuing through our Student Achievement Cornerstone, you see that we tracked both in and out of school suspensions. We started with our baseline and showed the percentage of students at the end of the first year, our promotion of first-time ninth graders, our dropout rate, our dual enrollment seat counts, and our industry-based certifications. We put a note on here so that you can see how often we pull and track this data. As I mentioned earlier, some of them lend themselves to monthly pulls or quarterly pulls. Others we wait towards the end of a grading period, end of a semester, or end of an academic year. Under the umbrella of exemplary customer service, we're currently tracking 5 KPIs. The first 2 center around stakeholder satisfaction. Those are accreditation surveys that we do annually. So you can see at the end of last year, the percentage rate of favorable responses on those surveys. We also put in a new metric here where we're tracking the number that we are getting returned to us. Those surveys are, as a plug here, for everyone watching at home, currently live or will be live on our website this week as we are beginning to collect data for the current school year. Our communications team is looking at the active family engagement structures of each school. So you see the percentage there that has a current structure, and they're putting the systems in place to get us to 100%. 2.5 tracks our total enrollment. We update this monthly for our public. And then, 2.4 is total enrollment. 2.5 is communications in native language. That one hasn't been populated yet because when we drafted the strategic plan, we targeted the 24-25 school year. The communications team is building the foundation for that right now and putting structures in place so that we can begin by the end of this year to capture our baseline data. Under operational excellence, we're looking at 5 key areas. The first 2 delve into transportation with transfer buses and the transport time of students across the district. 3.3 centers around facility response time. This one was not populated last year because we anticipated a change in our provider or our vendor for facilities. And so we worked in new metrics into the new contract with the current vendor. So we're setting up that framework right now so that we can begin to track it for you by mid-semester and towards the end of the year. 3.5 is high-risk incidents that our internal risk management department helps us to track. And then 3.5 centers around student absences and those students missing 10 or more days during the school year. That one is updated monthly on the district website. Our last cornerstone is employee development. 4.1 tracks the retention of high-performing employees. These are your employees who score in the 2 highest areas on their evaluations, and we do the count after the 30th day of school to track those who have returned to the district. 4.2 tracks employees with 10 or more days absent. We pull this data monthly using the leave codes and payroll software. 4.3 is professional development opportunities for staff. 4.4, the accreditation surveys with satisfaction ratings for culture coming back from internal staff members. And then 4.5 are newly hired teacher retention for the first 3 years. Those teachers in their first 3 years of service, their return rate to the district. Again, this is pulled after the 30th day of school utilizing HR data. So I'll pause there to see if there are any questions.
Board Colleague Lannis.
Ms. Okowski. Thank you, board. Thank you, Madam Vice President. I know I'm always usually the person to call out some data points, but I think there are some significant data points in the presentation that you just currently gave that should be highlighted.
Sure.
One, let's start at student achievement. When we started off, the baseline number was 25%. We got that down to 12% in terms of in-school and out-of-school suspensions. That is a huge drop. Promotion of first-time ninth graders has increased by 4%. Again, that is a good increase. The dropout rate has now went from 7% to 4.9%. That is an incredible feat. Industry-based certifications has risen from 263 to now 1,933. We're doing great work for students. And that's what I wanted to highlight here. Even our enrollment, some would have you believe a narrative that there are parents that are leaving our district, but from the data we're looking at right now, we just increased our student enrollment by more than 1,000 students over the course of this year. And we're not even done with the with this particular school year. So I just want to highlight the district and highlight the people who are doing some amazing work behind the scenes. Continue doing what you're doing. Even looking at the operational side with the transfer buses, the baseline data started off at 148 buses. Now we have increased that by 186 buses, and now we've cut down the time for people or our students waiting on the side of the corner at 5 o'clock in the morning. Ms. Okowski, that's the kind of data that our community needs to hear about. So I just want to highlight you all and thank you for all the amazing work you've been doing.
Thank you, Mr. Lannis, but it's as our superintendent says, it takes a village, and there are a lot of people working hard, rowing in the same direction to get this data to this place. As I said, I'm just blessed to be able to have the opportunity to be the face of it from time to time. So thank you.
The KPIs, typically we want to see a quick turnaround, but the average time for results for KPIs of this nature, and knowing that we haven't had a strategic plan since 2012, that's going to be at a minimum 3 to 5 years. And just to see that we're making those baseline jumps already, that's tremendous increase. And I just want to again thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Board Colleague Jill Dyson.
Hi, thank you so much for this. I'm so pleased to have our strategic plan and to finally have one that's not just sitting on a shelf, and that we have built in these KPIs, these key performance indicators that can show with great transparency to us and to our the public that we serve, real data. And I wanted to ask you, though, on operational excellence, I kind of thought it odd with 3.2 buses with transport time of 35 minutes or less. I would very much like to see with 35 minutes or more. I would like to see 45 minutes or more and 55 minutes or more. Those are the, I'm not really sure why we're tracking the little short bus rides. I don't know what we're trying to gain with that information. But I do think the long bus rides we do need to know about, and they are the ones that can affect student achievement in a negative way. So
We could get someone to pull that for you.
I'd like to see that on ongoing reports if we can. And two, the students missing doesn't necessarily equate to truancy because they may have valid health reasons or excused absences.
That is correct. We pulled just the straight number. And as
Yeah.
we know, last year we had many students and staff who went in and out of quarantine.
Yeah.
And some other measures. So you're correct there.
Right. So I'd kind of like to see, the real hard data so that we can truly work on decreasing our truancy rates. And I think the public, would like to follow that as well. So thank you so much for this.
can do that.
Appreciate.
Okay, you can proceed.
So what we were asked to do is we just showed you year one. And so, as I mentioned, we've already begun to populate certain metrics in year two. And so we wanted to spotlight academic metrics that we've already begun to populate in the first 45 days of the school year. The first is KPI 1.2 that centers around literacy for our K-3 students. The bar graph that you see in front of you, the light blue shows the beginning of the year last year. The green shows the middle of the year of the winter pool in January, and the gray shows the end of the year in the last 30 days of school. So, for example, you can see that last year our kindergartners started at 28% and then rose to 44%. And you can see the equivalent numbers for each grade level. But if you look at the line below it for the beginning of the year of this fall, you'll notice that our kindergartners this year started at 32%. While our first graders this year in the first 30 days are averaging 37% at benchmark or at grade level or above. Second grade is at 44% and third grade is at 47%. We're encouraged by these numbers while they are not where we need to be and well below 50%. We're encouraged by these numbers because we're starting at a better place than we did last fall semester for literacy. Moving into our upper grades for our ANET benchmark assessments, continuing under the ELA umbrella, KPI 1.3 tracks our benchmark assessments. Our students just finished their first fall interim, which is the unit test basically for the first 9 weeks of standards. So you can see each grade level. The gray bar reflects how the percent correct for the fall of 21. The orange bar represents the percent correct for the fall of 22. So that you see, with the exception of 2 grade levels, the majority of our grade levels are starting at a better place than they did. We talk about unfinished learning with COVID. We spent the afternoon talking about that with our collaborative partners, and we're seeing some of that unfinished learning. We're seeing that the gaps, though, are closing in some areas. And so this brings encouragement for our work. Our ANET consultants are coming in quarterly to work with our instructional leadership teams to delve deeper into the data to track the standards that are lacking proficiency and mastery. On the math side, this is our math diagnostic data. This was captured in the first 30 days of the school year. The gray represents the diagnostic in 21. The orange represents the diagnostic in 22. So that you see there how certain grade levels, again, are outperforming what their peers did last year, which gives us a better starting point to where we were. We do see some areas, especially in the high school math, that we're examining closely. The last slide that I'll show you shows our fall interim, the first 9 weeks in math. Okay, so the first one was the diagnostic, the first 30 days. At the 9-week marker, we grabbed another snapshot with our first fall interim so that you can see in the fall of 21, third grade had 49% correct, but this last fall interim, they fell to 48. But meanwhile, if you look at a grade like grade 5 last year was at 41%, and is now grade 5 is at 49%. While it's different groups of students, we know that in many grade levels, we're starting off in a better place than we did last fall. Again, our ANET team comes in quarterly, works with our instructional leadership teams. That's a principal, and they bring members of their school improvement team with them. They model for them how to analyze the data. They leave with a turnkey folder of resources to go back to guide the PLCs on the school campus. So we just wanted to spotlight those key areas under student achievement for year 2. As we
Ms.
move, yes, ma'am.
Board Member Howard has a question or comment.
Thank you. Thank you. Is this thing on? Okay. Thank you, Madam Vice President. So quick question,
Yes.
Ms. O'Connell. You already know where I'm going with this. So I think this data is great. I love that we have an opportunity to go through and see the data. And I'm sure this is coming up in the presentation, but 2 things that I think will be important for this board and future boards is obviously demographic breakdowns of this data, like by gender, by race, it matters, but also by school as we think about where to intentionally prioritize resources to make sure that students are up to par and having the level of achievement that we wish for our students to have. If we could see this by schools and by gender and by race, race, this board and future boards can be more intentional about how they spend money to address the issues that are occurring at certain schools based off of the assessment data. So just wanted to put
We
that out
kept
there.
it high
Thank you.
level tonight, but we have a slide deck ready for you for each of these assessments that we can share. Superintendent
We
can attest to
anticipated
it.
that question, Board Member Howard.
We have it.
I'm sorry, Board Colleague. Oh, will you finish? Okay. Board Colleague Ware Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. This is really great information, and I know that our general public would appreciate seeing this, much like we are. Dr. Narcisse, would you mind? Sometimes when you have your updates, you have some really interesting information that not only the board would be interested in, but the everybody would like to see this. This would have really been great to have in the backup so that they can take a look at it. And I believe they've requested that we do this so that they can follow along and get this information. So I just wanted to remind you to, when you have extra, stuff that, these presentations, we thoroughly appreciate seeing it, but our general public really wants to see this information. This is stuff they really need to see. Thank you.
So to close this out tonight, as just a reminder, we will come back and give you periodic updates as we continue to work through the process of populating our scorecard. There's a outstanding interdepartmental team that continues to collaborate on a regular basis. We really appreciate the support and the work of our colleagues. Sometimes we nag them to track down the data, but they are great troopers with us, and they submit real-time data for us to populate this scorecard. As I said, year 2 metrics will come at quarterly and then semester and then end of the year intervals, and we'll be happy to, as each time we come back, to spotlight some different areas of data based on the request of you guys. I'm happy and excited to chair this committee that does this work, but my co-pilot, as always, is Miss Amy Jones, who on the tech side, her team has done a fantastic job of designing the scorecard and keeps it live on our website. For the viewing public, there are school drop-downs where you can see each school. You can also see a timestamp of when we've updated the data. So there's a feedback button on that website. Those watching at home, please feel free to use it or to email myself or Ms. Jones, so that in the spirit of continuous improvement, we're gonna keep plugging away at this. So thank you all.
Making sure I'm
Sure.
processing the benchmark assessments. That's diagnostic, right?
We had both represented. So the math and ELA, we showed you the first interim, which is the end of the first 9 weeks, or the first quarter standards taught. And math, we had 2 graphs, one that showed the diagnostic, the other that showed the data that we have available so far for the first interim.
Okay, on slide number, which one? 'Cause I've
Slide
mixed my stuff up. I'm
12
sorry.
is your math fall interim. Slide 11 is the math diagnostic. And then slide 10 is the ELA interim.
So ANET does diagnostic, and so then the interim, so diagnostic does the standards from the previous
Yes,
year.
ma'am.
And the interim does the current year.
Correct. It takes a snapshot of the most recent units taught.
And then what's our, I thought I heard you say, but then when I went to go double check what I thought I heard, the student enrollment for this year is what?
What we pulled up here was last year's end of the year enrollment as we finished on the last day of school. And I will pull it real quick for you.
And then what's our October 1st count?
Last year, we finished the school year at 41,050 students. The state has not certified the October 1st count yet. We're actually still going back and forth with polls and reports to the state. We hope to have that number for you in the next 10 to 15 days. They haven't certified it yet. But I can send you a real-time report from the information
So we don't
system.
know what we told the state? We want them to
Oh,
certify?
no, I can send you the report. We run
What
it
did we
once a
tell
week.
the state we want them to certify?
We don't. They pull at certain intervals.
Okay.
They pull at certain intervals. But I can send you the real-time report from any day. We can send it tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Or if you want, we can send October 1.
Yep.
We do that.
All right. Moving forward, seeing no other requests to speak or questions from my board colleagues moving forward. Because that's all you have, right?
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Superintendent.
That is my report, Madam Vice President.
All right, moving forward with item C1, presentations, bridging the gap.
Yes, Madam Vice President, I wanted to allow Board Member Lannis to speak on this issue. Board Member Lannis?
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Thank you, Madam Vice President. I wanted to take this moment to call up the several board members from the 100 Black Men of Metro Baton Rouge. Today we have the president, Mr. Michael R.D. Adams, who's going to just briefly speak on a unique partnership that we entered into with the East Baton Rouge Parish School System as well as Apple Computers last month to announce Bridging the Gap program, where we are putting a more in-depth focus around literacy at some of our lowest performing elementary and middle schools across East Baton Rouge Parish. Throughout this partnership, we were able to secure over 500 iPads to go towards those schools to help reach those students from a digital standpoint, but also add a mentoring and tutoring aspect to it with several of our community partners. But I'll just stop here and I'll allow Mr. Michael R.D. Adams to just speak briefly on the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Lannis. Members of the school board, Madam Vice President, Mr. Superintendent, we appreciate you having us here tonight. I'm Michael Adams. I'm president and chairman of the board of 100 Black Men Metro Baton Rouge. Behind me are several of our board members who accompanied me here. We'd just like to thank the superintendent and the school board for allowing us to continue to do what we do, which is first mentor kids. And we have been doing it for 30 years in this community. And we do it through some stellar programs that we work in schools and out of schools. One is our ACT Academy, which is an award-winning ACT program that will move a kid's ACT scores by 2 points after they finish our 8-week program. We have a financial literacy program that we do every spring. We have a summer robotics program that you allow us to do at Kenilworth during the summer. And this semester, we have launched our Respect for Life program in 4 high schools, where we teach young people about respecting authority. And that's a program that we know that has worked. Now we have decided to endeavor in the area of literacy. We started with the mayor's initiative on literacy. And so we've partnered now with EBR school system and with the mayor's office to attack literacy in this parish and with Apple. And we think you'll see members of the 100 in some of your schools working with young people, helping them to understand and identify how important it is to read, to write, and to communicate. We know that and I've heard it said already, that it does take a village. We know that we are a part of this village, and we have been, and so we want to thank you guys for allowing us to participate and move our community forward.
And if you don't mind, Madam Vice President, I just want to make sure that we completely highlight this moment, because it's not just about mentoring and tutoring. It's also about putting your money where your mouth is. And the 100 Black Men of Metro Baton Rouge is also giving a $25,000 donation to one of our schools inside of this community in the 70806 zip code, which is Capital Middle School. We know this is a school that needs more interventions. And not only did we give a $25,000 donation, but we also delivered 1,000 early learner and accelerated reader books for absolutely free on behalf of our friends with Scholastic Books. So that's our commitment to making sure that we fight against this literacy problem we have inside of our district. And we're going to continue to work and collaborate with our district as much as we can. So just thank you again.
Thank you. And I just had a quick question. And first and foremost, I want to thank the brothers for stepping up to the plate. You know, women like myself, we always say it's the women that get things done, but it's nice to see the brothers taking it and taking the lead strong. Look, I just want to make sure these Apple books, are we working to help make sure that, how are we going to make sure that we manage internet safety? I know on like our Chromebooks, we have certain things that our amazing IT folks put in place to keep the internet safety, and then give us alerts like maybe they might search ways to do suicide or whatever. And so I don't know if they will start of or not, but I wanted to lift it up, and then we could be of assistance, you know, in that regard.
Those technical things we know are very important, and you'll see us in the classroom starting in January, but I'll defer to Dr. Narciso.
Okay.
It's a great question, Vice President Collins. We actually work closely with any technology that's distributed through the district. Our Chief of Technology, Amy Jones, who is also being versed not only in Google and Chrome, but also in Apple as well. With her team, provides security measures in the equipment. So
Okay.
we are,
That's good.
We're able to monitor all those things.
And then if you could, I wanted to make sure I mentioned that because these babies are exceptionally clever, even the ones that we feel like are struggling real hard in the classroom. They know how to get on that internet and figure out all kind of stuff. And so I wanted to make sure that we just think about that. But then you had mentioned going into the classroom. Can you share a little bit more about that side? You all shared about the technology portion, but then, you know, what is a day in the life of going into the classrooms with?
So one of the things that we're doing is, because although you know, for a long time our name is 100 Black Men, but there were not 100 of us. But now we are 120 strong, and we are in the middle of creating a collegiate chapter at LSU. We have a collegiate chapter at Southern. Those students will work with us. We'll actually spend time in the classroom starting in the fall, and it will be part of the collegiate's responsibility to go and actually read, work with the technology, and spend time. We found that we are successful in the 100 when you spend time with young people. And you can make a difference in their lives. And so our motto is, what they see is what they'll be. And they'll see these guys that are standing behind me. They'll see college students who are readying themselves to become productive citizens. And we think that has a positive impact on any young person that we have the opportunity to be exposed to. So a day in the life of the 100 mentoring would be seeing young people engage with us.
Awesome. I think it's very powerful for you all to provide that example, because sometimes they don't even know that a career path is an option because they just hadn't even heard about it. And so then you all and those students being on those campuses, I think is amazing. And board member Dyson and then board colleague Lannis.
I didn't need to speak. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to cut in. I just want to acknowledge the fact that we have the principal here from Capital Middle School as well as the ED. So we wanted to also allow them an opportunity just if they wanted to come up and speak and say anything.
It was an accident? Okay.
Oh, I'm sure I can.
Good afternoon, Vice President Collins, Superintendent Narcisse, and the board. I just really want to give a heartfelt thank you to 100 Black Men for investing in Capital Middle School. Capital Middle School is definitely a great place with lots of potential. And I feel like a program like this that not only brings in the mentorship aspect to help with some of the academics after school, but also looking at attendance, bringing in parents for lunch and learn, where students are going to be able to share their own data, where they can begin to talk about who they are and where they are and where they want to be, taking them on field trips where they'll be able to leave outside of the community And I think the one we have planned in the fall is for them to go to a Pelicans game. So actually to go to New Orleans, to go to the game, to be able to participate in something outside of the school for working hard, coming to their tutoring courses at least 85% of the time, and really just investing in themselves. I just think this is powerful. It's awesome. It's great. And thank you for picking us. We definitely will not let you down, and you will see the fruits of your labor.
Greetings, Dr. Narcisse and board. I'm excited as a newly appointed principal. I've been there approximately 21 days, but we're excited with the partnership. This could not have come at a better time. We need the mentors for our students, and we're excited to and ready to embrace this positive image of having men to come and support our students, because it's definitely needed, and to see the community come together to support the students and their successes. So we're grateful, and we want to thank you, and to everyone who played a role. And Mr. Lannis, thank you so much, because those students at Capital Middle need every support that we can get at this time. So thank you again.
All right, thank you. Thanks so much. Round of applause and appreciation. And now moving forward with item, I see a request to speak from board colleague Ware Jackson.
Would you please catch the principal for me? Thank you.
Oh, was it in reference to? I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, it wasn't about that, but
Oh,
this is
okay.
regarding her school.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda, please. I would like us to consider a resolution in support of exploring the community schools strategy on behalf of Capital Middle School and Capital Elementary School. And I requested this yesterday, and of the superintendent and the board president. I put the resolution together as a promise to follow through with the work that we began to explore how this community schools model would benefit our children at Capital Middle and Elementary Schools, along with their families. And I am honestly perplexed as to why my request for this to be on the agenda was denied. Everything went in on time, and normally everything goes through the committee of the whole. The public has expectations that we follow through with our intentions as discussed. So I would like to make the motion to amend the agenda to include a discussion and consideration of the adoption of a resolution to establish two demonstration sites, Capital Elementary School and Capital Middle School, for the implementation of the Sustainable Community Schools Strategy. And that's my motion.
Okay. Is there a second? Well, I'll support it. I'll provide a second.
We have just finished talking about all the wonderful things that are happening in the district and how we want to support Capital Middle and Capital Elementary moving forward. Those schools have been through so much, not only those schools, but many of our neighborhood schools. And we have been working hard to do some research on ways that we can help not only the capitals, but other struggling neighborhood schools. I attended a conference in the summer, and then just last week, the regional conference, where I learned about the initial processes that would take place, the availability of federal funding, and the regional assistance available to those districts that move forward in a very timely manner in adopting this proven strategy. Not only can we improve these schools, but also make a difference, a significant improvement in the neighborhoods near these schools using this strategy. From the conference, we were able to work on several things to help us move forward. One of them was a resolution that the district would adopt for these two schools to begin the process of moving forward with the strategy and improving the community as well as those schools.
Board Counsel Shamlin.
Thank you, Vice President. Just for clarity, the motion would be to suspend the rules to add the item, and then we would have to then consider the item should that motion pass. Just want to make sure that was clear.
Okay. All right. So then, seeing no request to speak from the board regarding suspending the rules.
Ms. Wade Jackson, could you restate? I want to make sure we have the motion specifics correct. It was a motion to suspend the rules to amend the agenda to
add the to add an item around the community school strategy for Capital Middle and Capital Elementary.
So it would,
A resolution.
so you want the resolution you shared with the board, would you like that? I just want to make sure that resolution was actually go to State Department to support the community schools model, but you
No,
want
sir.
to further.
No.
Okay, I got
It
you.
was the resolution that was sent yesterday
Okay,
specifically for
community.
the models to implement the two
Capital Middle.
implementation of the two demonstration sites
Gotcha.
at Capital Elementary and Capital
Capital
Middle.
Middle School. Okay.
And then recognizing the superintendent.
Yeah, I just want to clarify one thing, because we have been working with Board Member Ware Jackson on this. The concern was not that we did not want to do the resolution. The issue is resolutions are mostly done at board meetings. And so when we spoke to the board president and council, that's how the rules always are, that we usually do the resolutions during board meetings, not at the COW. So I just want to clarify for the public that we, although Board Member Ware Jackson, you submitted that, and when we made that request to the board. But I do want to say this for the public. We are fully engaged that we are going to be doing the community school model at Capital Elementary and at the middle school. And so I know that we're working on the resolution, but I just wanted the public to be aware that that is a model. We already began having some preliminary conversations on that. The principal who's here, who's actually we're excited about because she, the current principal that has like the middle school, has actually familiar with the model because it happened at elementary, and we do think it's a good practice to learn from. So I just wanted to share that, although I know we're in the legal space of the resolution, but that's not going to stop that progress.
Everything goes through the COW, resolutions as well. This would not be the first one. Just last month, we had a resolution on the agenda at the Committee of the Whole. And this is something that if we move forward quickly, we are like in front of the line for significant funding for these two schools. And we've already started we've put things in process, and what I'm asking is that we just follow the normal protocol that we usually do, and that is to place it on the agenda for the Committee of the Whole so that we have time to look at it and the public can see the resolution. And if there are any concerns from, just like any other thing that goes through Committee of the Whole, if we see anything that needs to be tweaked or changed or any concern, we have those 2 weeks in the middle before it moves to the regular agenda at the regular board meeting, or it moves by consent, just like everything else. Dr. Narcisse, I understand that. No, I don't. I don't understand why the change in this, because this is something that is very important, not only to the two schools, but those neighborhoods that are there, and something that is very supportive of neighborhood schools. We do well with many things. You know, we've got wonderful magnets and focused choice and charter schools and, you know, all kinds of wonderful programming in the district. And but we are an average district, and until we really focus on what neighborhood schools need, and especially with a model that is proven across the country to be successful, we'll never reach an A status. So, you know, I'm just asking that we follow the regular protocol and place it on the agenda, not on the top, of course, because it would have to go in the backup, but a lot of work has been done. And, you know, people in the area, the whole community wants to see something positive for neighborhood schools. And this is a wonderful move forward.
Superintendent.
Yeah, so I just want to reiterate, Board Member Jackson, again, we are going to do it. So whether the resolution happens here or at the board meeting, we've already been in preliminary discussions. We're already going to be ahead of the line because we're working through that process already. So the resolution won't make a difference on whether it starts or not, because we've already committed to starting that. We've engaged with the school leader who's familiar with the model. We're going to start through the process. They've had an expert that's come in and spoken to them. There's just a matter of moving that. So I just want to reiterate that that we are moving forward with the community schools model to the public.
I understand what you're saying.
Point of order, ma'am. We've been discussing this for a good period of time, and we've had no clock on this, and there's a motion.
We
being
did.
made.
Oh, I was looking in the
I
middle.
did not want to interrupt my colleague while she was
Yeah.
talking, but there was no visible clock because we've spent well over 5 minutes on the introduction of this.
Okay, part of the issue was response from the appropriate response from the superintendent, which made it difficult. But thank you. And so then, superintendent, that was all you had?
I just want to reiterate, Vice President, we're going to be moving forward with this. So, you know, this is great for the board to put its seal on it, but I just want to make sure that the public's aware this is not going to slow down the progress of us getting grants or those things for that work.
Okay, and then board colleague Lannis.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. I just want to lift something up while we are in the interest of having this conversation. One, I want to say that obviously I support any measure that adds more preventative corrections to schools, much like Capital Middle School, because those types of schools need them. My only pushback is this. We have several community schools across East Baton Rouge Parish. And because of this, my question is why are we only selecting 2 schools to build a resolution around rather than looking at other districts as well? I know my district has community school based model. Has community schools, our neighborhood schools. District 3 has community schools. In fact, I don't have to go down the list. Every single district inside of East Baton Rouge Parish has true community schools. Now, is a model in place? No, it is not. But my question is why are we only segmented into 2 particular schools rather than looking across the district to see where those corrective models should be placed?
And board colleague Lannis just mentioning, and I hear your concern. This is a particular model, and so then, yes, the general term of community schools we do have at other schools, but what she's referencing is a specific model that we had a presentation on in September from one of the national people who came and shared about the federal dollars in the model itself. And so that's why she's speaking to that, and perhaps and she could collect, she out of time, so she can't. But my understanding of why Capital Elementary and Capital Middle is that we had a community school, we had the model implemented there, and it just would be low-hanging fruit to rebuild what we had at those 2 school sites. That's why.
And again, I completely understand that, but I'll just take my district, right? I have schools like Glen Oaks Park Elementary who has no magnet component connected to it.
I'm sorry. Hold up. I think she let me know What am I missing?
Well, you know, each,
We're not
each,
still in
each
discussion?
board member has 5 minutes
Oh,
to speak, so we're repeating once you've spoken once. Yeah, that's all right.
okay. All right. Okay. That's all right. Getting into the old habits. Yeah. Thank you all for catching us. All right. And so then, seeing no other requests to speak from the board, then public comment. And just, Dr. Finney, can you just reach your card? Just pass it with Sister Storm. Thank you kindly. Yes, sir.
I'm James Finney. I'm not planning to speak on the merits of the resolution at the moment because that's not on the table. But what's extremely important and why I'm disturbed that the presider of the meeting had to provide the second is that if you do not suspend the rules, then you should assume that whoever you elect as board president can block anything that you want to bring to a board meeting. Anything, for no good reason. So whether you think the superintendent should have been able to squash this without it coming before the board, whether you believe his promise that it's going to happen anyway is irrelevant. If you don't suspend the rules, then you've basically given the board president, whoever that is at the moment, far too much power. I want to know that whoever my representative is, if I persuade that person, Ms. Collins next month or her successor thereafter, to bring something to the board, that they have that ability. The fact that Ms. Ward Jackson made a sincere effort to get something on the agenda before the agenda was cut off 24 hours before and was told no is incredibly disturbing. You should be disturbed. You know, Mr. Goday, let's say you thought of something that you wanted to be on the agenda. You want to give absolute veto power to Mr. Tapman? Or if you win re-election and you're the board president, you're hoping for absolute veto power? It's a really big deal, whether you care about this resolution or not. A member of the board should absolutely have the power to put anything they reasonably want to on the agenda. And as a matter of fact, there's a policy that this administration hasn't followed, wherein a member of the public has a right established by policy to request that something be put on the agenda. I've done that. I haven't gotten the response that your policy calls for. This is just another step down the slippery slope of abdicating the responsibility you have to your constituents and giving far too much power to the gentleman that you selected as your superintendent. So please suspend the rules, place this on the agenda, then do with what you will. Thank you.
Next.
You almost only got one card out of me tonight. I agree with what Dr. Finney said. All of you have the right to have something placed on the agenda. And when you submit something in a timely fashion and it is not placed on the agenda, that is problematic, whether we agree with the item or not. If you don't agree with the item, you vote against it. I 100% agree with what is going to be voted on. I thank you that you are going to support it. But again, we've talked about how we do stuff even when it's a really good thing. So I'm really glad that you've promised that you're going to do it and it's just going to be done later and they can put their seal on it later. That's not how we do things, Dr. Narcisse. You have to come to the board first. So we have to suspend the rules first so they can vote on it. And after it's approved, then we move forward. Yes, that is right. It goes to the board first. The board makes policy, then the school does things. If you knew your job, maybe then you could win re-election.
All right, let's keep it civil. Thank you. Seeing no other public comment and seeing no requests, board colleague Ware Jackson.
Vice President, point of order, she spoke once already. Oh, we're
We're
going
back
back
to
from
the-
the ad.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
stop.
go ahead. My bad, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, well, I wanted to address a question around why these two schools and Vice President, you answered that well, because it had started already at Capitol Elementary School. And because now we have one principal over those two schools, which is extremely, in my opinion, a dangerous thing to do, considering all the needs of that school. It's a tremendous amount of responsibility to place there. We did that one time with two extremely high performing schools, and it was a challenge for Nan McCann with Baton Rouge High and Liberty, and she had lots of staff to help. So these schools need all of the support that they can get, and through the resolution, it gives step by step what the process is and what the expectations are, and this comes from the people that have been very successful in other cities who are doing this. I did not write this resolution myself. I'm not an expert in education. This came from a collaboration of what experts have put together specifically for those schools. And in that, there is an application process for other schools to apply to also incorporate this type of strategy. And it is one of those strategies where we're looking at, like what we've heard a couple of times tonight about the village, it takes a village. Well, this is actually a village type model where we pull in partnerships. We just celebrated a wonderful collaboration with LSU and Dreambox and the mayor's office. And this is something that is similar in that we collaborate with everyone in the community to strengthen the school, strengthen the parents, not only the parents and the children, the grandparents, the whole family, so that everybody thrives and the whole neighborhood thrives. When we have a strong neighborhood school, we have strong neighborhoods, and we see there are problems in our neighborhoods right now with high crime rates and just all kinds of things that are happening that are not making the news in a positive way. And this type of strategy has been proven in other cities to improve neighborhoods and decrease crime. And there is no doubt that our neighborhoods need this, not only the capital area, but neighborhoods across the city. Now, not every school would need to do this, but there are some, like Mr. Lana said in his area, needed. And we've already had requests from, is it Park? I get the two parks, Miss Park Forest area, that is also looking to adopt this type of model. So that is why I'm asking about this. It's definitely not for this board member, but for the sake of neighborhood schools across the district, and this would be a model for success for all of the others. So I'm asking that you suspend the rules and add the item so that it can be vetted by the board. You can hear the resolution, everything that it entails, and the public can also see this on board docs and read it themselves and be prepared for the next meeting.
Seeing no other requests to speak, Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. Sorry. Now please vote.
As a point of order, Madam Vice President, this needs to be unanimous, does it not? Thank you.
That's correct.
The motion fails.
All right. And Moving forward then with item D1. Cooperative Endeavor Agreement with BREC. Consideration of a request to authorize the board president and general counsel to negotiate and execute a cooperative endeavor agreement between the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board and BREC regarding the use of the old Jefferson Terrace Elementary School site as a public park. Okay, technically D2. All right. Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no Oh, Jesus. All right, who is the first? Okay, Gode, and then the seconded by, okay, Lannis. All right. Now seeing no request to speak, going to the public. Seeing no public comment, back to the board. Seeing no request to speak. Oh, okay.
Thank you, James Finney. I think this is a great idea, but the park is and the school were on Cal Road, not Val Road.
Oh.
Spelling matters. Thank you.
Thank you for the typo notice. Seeing no other public comment. Now back to the board. Seeing no request to speak from the board, Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Moving forward now with item D3. Oversight Committee Financial Update. Recommended action, consideration of a request for approval of the semi-annual financial tax plan update and the 2020-21 preliminary actual results for propositions 1, 2, and 3. Can I get a motion? Board Member Lannis and Board Member Baloo. Seeing no request to speak from the board. Seeing no public comment. Okay, seeing no public comment, I was just making sure. Back to the board. Seeing no request to speak. Madam Secretary, please call a vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Moving forward now with item D4. Eliminated job descriptions. And yes, board colleague Baloo.
Yes, council is advised that there's one position that's on the current list that is being used, and that's the school accounts specialist. So my motion is that we approve the list without, by removing the school accounts specialist position. Hopefully that made sense.
So then a motion would read as typed, adding except the school accounts specialist. All right, and so then can I get a second on that motion? Board colleague Gode. Seeing no request to speak from the board. Okay, seeing no request to speak from, okay, board colleague Howard.
Get some explanation because in the backup, it talks about that particular position that we kept in in the frame as being antiquated and then replaced by a school auditor. So if we can just get some voiceover as to what's actually happening. What is it? Not the auditor? Is it what's going on? That's all I want to know.
Miss Hall, can you please come up?
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. The school account specialist was not in use for 3 years, and they went ahead and filled the position. And I found out about it at the last minute while we were doing our auditing of our own records, and I request to have that pulled. Trying to do due diligence. You're welcome.
All right, seeing no other requests to speak to the public.
Thank you. I'm James Finney. I would have expected the Chief of Human Resources would be aware of what positions are being used and what aren't. So I would hope that the administration would produce better prepared material the next time they ask you to approve something. Thank you.
Seeing no other public comment, back to the board. Seeing no request to speak from the board. Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. Ms. Dyson. The motion carries.
Moving forward with item D5, amended job descriptions. Recommended action, consideration of a request for the approval of the following amended job descriptions. Administrative Director, Director of School Security, Supervisor of School Security, Coordinator of Fine Arts, Transportation Service Technician, Director of Student Services, Supervisor of Health, PE, and Athletics. Can I get a motion? Board Colleague Lannis. And the second, Board Colleague Blue. Seeing no request to speak from the board and seeing no pub.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
Ms. Collins. Vice President Collins, I apologize for interrupting. When you read the item, be sure to read each one of the job descriptions in, since it's only a short list. I'm not sure if you did or not. I wanted to be sure it was read into the.
Oh, yes, I did
You
on
did?
this item, yes.
Okay, I apologize.
No
Thank you.
problem. Okay. And so then, public comment.
Thank you. I'm still James Finney. There are a couple things that I expect to see whenever I look at a public body's approved job descriptions. One is who everybody reports to. So in theory, we could reproduce an organizational chart for an organization that doesn't wish to share a complete organizational chart. So when I see all these proposed job descriptions that say reports to immediate supervisor, why bother? If you don't want to tell us who this person reports to, why even include that? And that's bad enough, but it says salary range, see approved salary schedule. Well, unless you approve these as items on the salary schedule that you changed last month, there is no reference on the salary schedule. So we have to go look for an obsolete title. Hope we find it, which leads me to feel obligated to remind all of you that when the Chief of Human Resources told you last month that you had already approved her cabinet level position, I'm quite certain she was mistaken. And for your Chief of Human Resources officer, Chief Human Resources officer, to not even have a good handle on whether her job has been approved by the board, I find that disturbing. But back to this item. Job title, Administrative Director. How in the world is anybody in the public supposed to know what an Administrative Director is? That is a completely vapid, useless empty title. I don't know what you're trying to hide, administration, with that title, but it's useless. I see with the Director and Supervisor of School Security the removal of Louisiana teacher certification, which suggests that your either incumbent folks in those positions or their intended replacements, if they leave, aren't certified, which leads me to wonder how many other folks beyond a couple of your cabinet members don't have the requirements called for by the job descriptions that your new superintendent asked you to approve. If you're not going to follow the required qualifications and existing job descriptions, why bother changing them? The job descriptions mean nothing. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the point is to make these job descriptions such a meaningless waste of paper and bytes on a computer cloud somewhere that the superintendent can just hire whoever he wants, whenever he wants, and pay them whatever he wants. Exercise some fiduciary responsibility and at the very least defer this until next month and encourage the administration to finally get its act together. Thank you.
Seeing no other public comment, back to the board. I'm at a loss for word for my titles. Ms. Nicola Hall, can you just make sure that between now and the next board meeting, whatever the salary schedule designation for each position is included, instead of just saying see salary schedule? Okay. Board colleague Gode.
Yes, thank you. I would just like to very quickly address some of the what I consider disparaging remarks from our resident legal expert and HR expert on some of these matters. I've spent a lot of time working in large organizations with HR, and the inclusion of the exact reporting structure is very rarely ever considered in a job description. And the reason for that is because in today's world, job structures and organizational structures are fluid and change as required. And so the key is that what is the actual operations, what are the actual responsibilities of that job? Because who they report to may be one person this year and one person next year. And if we want to be sitting in meetings forever and ever approving changes in job descriptions and making it completely onerous for our HR department to keep that up, then yeah, we can go ahead and put that in, but that is not best practice. Just like having job descriptions that are so specific that they only describe one job is also not best practice. The company I worked in, we had a job description that maybe 30 or 40 jobs fit under, because that was a generalized description of that you could set salaries with and do that. But just because someone changed, you moved the responsibility from one person to another person, or any of those kinds of things as you went through your organizational structure over time, those do not have to come back to the board for everyone. Our fiduciary responsibility is with the budget, it's with the salary schedules as we work through this. So I would hate to see us get bogged down in the minutia of how to run things, as opposed to maintaining our position as a policy board and as a board where our main responsibility is on budgets and making sure that we have salary schedules that we can meet. Thank you.
Thank you, board colleague Ware Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. In looking at these job descriptions, most of them are pretty clear, or at least they give you direction into which area you're going into. But I am curious about the administrative director. It is a little bit obscure. Can you give me a little bit clarity on that, please? What an administrative director is, which area that?
Yes, so we replaced the position that was on the books is the administrative director of purchasing and finance, if I'm not mistaken. And it was too specific to purchasing and finance. So it's hard to elevate someone or hire someone in an administrative director position, essentially the best scenario would be an executive director, right? So instead of having executive director of school improvement, I'm using as an example, and that's so tailored to that one position. What if you need that person to cover an assignment or a cluster of assignments? You cannot move that person in that capacity because that person has only been hired and been doing executive director of innovative school improvement. So it's best practice is to the best practice is not to get yourself aligned to just specific titles because you'll lock yourself in. And not only that, the board policy states that every time there is a period or something that has to be changed on the job description, I have to come back to the board. So I'm really trying not to come back. Love you guys, but I'm not trying to come back for another 3 to 5 years. And this is the reason why I'm taking this step to do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Seeing no other requests to speak from the board, Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Now moving forward with item D6, which is the Child Nutrition Program Multi-Unit Managers Supplemental Pay Update. The recommended action is a consideration of a request for the approval of a supplemental pay update for the CNP multi-unit managers. Can I get a motion? Board colleague Lannis and board colleague Baloo. Seeing no requests to speak from the board, seeing no, oh, D6. Seeing a public comment from Storm Matthews.
Oh, she didn't ask to speak.
But that's the next one. That needs to be fixed for the next one since we adjusting numbers. All right, James Finney.
Thank you. When you're ratifying unanimously something that the administration is asking you to do, I think it's important that you have a clear understanding of what the administration is asking you to do. And I don't think this memo provides that. We don't know what the price tag is. We don't have explicit confirmation that this is coming from child nutrition funds that are already there, and there's plenty, and won't leave you with too little. So this is probably a fine idea, but you don't have enough information here to determine whether it's a fine idea or not. And that's not legal advice. And if you were the board of directors of a private corporation, it might be just fine to do whatever the CEO asks you to do if it doesn't look too alarming. This is not a private corporation. You are a public body responsible for the use of taxpayer funds. So I would encourage one of you to propose a substitute motion to send this forward without recommendation in hopes that the administration can be persuaded that they might want to provide more useful backup information in the next 2 weeks so that you can go ahead and slide it through unanimously, because you have a responsibility to know what you're approving. And I don't think there's enough information here for you to know what you're approving. Thank you.
Karonda Corley. Sister Corley.
Just a little late, but I'm here. How y'all doing tonight? Name is Karonda Corley, Parent Disabilities Advocate nationally. And here's my little one, Corinth Corley. And we would like to say that we do not agree with this. Let me tell you why. Right now, y'all owe us a little more than $10,000 in county. And part of that amount is because of food. Unfortunately, our child nutrition department.
Mr. Corley, this is regarding the
Hold my
salaries.
time up, hold up.
It's regarding the
It
salaries.
was at 2 minutes and 24 seconds.
Regarding the salaries.
April, my clock's still going.
Regarding the salaries, can we keep it germane to the wonderful child and nutrition department's salaries?
Yes, ma'am. I'm owed some seconds because my clock was still going and it says 2:08 and I was at 2:24 when you started talking. Just for the record. So you can't say I'm still in time. But this is why I'm saying that we don't need to give no supplementary pay update. Because I'm not an employee. And I'm owed money. I go to Whole Foods all the time. The people over there know me. Everybody, from management on down. And I constantly pay for food. Breakfast,
salaries.
Breakfast, snacks, lunch, and drinks. And it's spelled out in his IEP. Now,
Sister Corley.
I would greatly appreciate.
Sister Corley, stop a time. Stop a time.
See?
Sister Corley.
Yes, ma'am.
I have seen your numerous emails regarding this subject matter, and I respect and in many ways agree with what you are saying. But this is not germane to these people getting their supplemental pay in the child nutrition.
I'm getting to that point. If y'all let me.
Go ahead and get to it swiftly.
But I only spoke for 7 seconds, so take that from the 2:24. Okay, so I'm not an employee, so I don't get paid for what I'm doing for my child. That EBR school system is receiving monies from the USDA. Now, my child just finally received a teacher, a special ed teacher, who would not receive the bonus on the 13th of December. And that's a problem. Because now we're saying that we want to just give select people pay, extra pay, supplemental pay, stipends, whatever else we would like to call them. But a new teacher to our school system that came out of retirement to teach ESS, which is a subject that teaches every core subject, is problematic. So what I'm asking is that we not approve it, but that we actually find a way to not just supplement their pay, but also all of the individuals who came into our school system out of retirement to actually make sure that children like mine can actually be educated and provided free, appropriate public education. That's what I'm asking. I'm asking that we consider every single staff member. They had never gave me back my time. But I am hoping that we can make sure
Thank you, Sister Corley.
that every staff member matter every day,
Corley.
just like every student.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Oh, I still had time.
No, you ain't had no time. Thank you. All right. And then submitting a card in support, but not wishing to speak, is Sister Storm Matthews. And then for clarity, for the viewing public, can we get, is Dr. Mann here? This supplemental is annually done, is it not?
So child nutrition is under my leadership. So this is part of the salary schedule already. The goal is to encourage other managers to cover schools that we cannot find managers for. So we have 58 schools with managers and we have 25 schools that don't have a manager. And no one wants to cover the school because the salary schedule says $75. So per paycheck.
And so it's an
Yes.
expense they can't afford in their budget.
Right. So if we had to hire a manager, full-time manager, you're looking at a salary starting in the low 30s, $32,000. So if you're looking at that, the savings. So let me make it as simple as possible. It's hard for me to encourage another person to go and take over a school that if we had a full-time manager would pay a $32,000 salary for $75. So we're just making this more competitive and encouraging to help to boost morale if we put numbers attached to it, a data attached to it.
Okay.
So.
All right, and board, and it's coming from a federal funding source, right?
That is correct. Child meals or school lunch and breakfast is reimbursed by the federal government. This has nothing to do with general funds.
But this is something that we do accepting these funds?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
All I'm doing is trying to make it,
Making some adjustments to it?
Yeah, just trying to appeal
to,
yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Board colleague Lannis?
Thank you, Madam Vice President. I just want to be really quick about this. I support this. I support this. I support this. Some of our cafeteria workers are some of our lowest paid employees, and we have to find ways to supplement not only their salaries, but to get their overall salaries increased. Again, I support this. I think that this is something we have to do across the board. I hope this is something that we can infuse with other positions such as our bus drivers as well as our janitorial workers who are also frontline people on the lines every single day. So again, I just want to say I support this measure, and let's continue to make these types of endeavors to get our employees where they need to be in terms of salaries.
Thank you. Thank you. Seeing no other requests to speak from the board, Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Moving forward with item D7, professional services contract, federal. The recommended action is a consideration of a request for approval to continue a professional services contract between EBR School Board and Imagine Learning LLC in the amount of $339,250 to provide an online credit and credit recovery courseware. And for those who are used to hearing it said as Edgenuity, that's what this is. All right, and a motion from Board Colleague Howard and seconded by Board Colleague Ballou. Seeing no request to speak from the board, public comment from Storm Matthews.
It might take me a second to get there, but I'm going to be germane, I promise. During the Pupil Progression Plan Committee, we talked about how students can fail at the semester. And because we're using it's new, it's the, whatever the new name is for Edgenuity. We use that for the credit recovery. So if you have 5 Fs at December, you have failed the grade at December. So you have failed one semester, maybe of English, social studies, math, PE, and art. What do you take in summer school? Now, we decided at Pupil Progression that wasn't something in policy to bring before the board. And that was something we needed to talk about in practice with the school system. So I just wanted to remind those of us that are working while we're talking about Edgenuity, and I did see in the contract in the backup that they do have with this new one, and maybe, and I've already spoken to somebody in admin that we're going to talk about it to see, that they possibly do have, and Superintendent Narcisse, maybe because I believe it does have electives now, which it didn't used to. When I did summer school for 10 years, they never had that. It was just the core subjects. So maybe you can speak to that. But like if you fail art or if you fail PE and that's what's keeping you from going to the next grade, Like, what do you take? If you've just failed one semester of something, what do you take? Because in summer school, you have to take the full year of it. Now, it's only a few children who fall through this crack, but I did want to lift that up and just keep us reminded that these are some kids that we need to remember that this does happen to, and just to see if, make sure that we have something in this program for them as well.
Sister Corley. Dr. Finney, would you care to go in her stead? Well, not in her stead, excuse me.
I'm sorry,
As we-
I don't think I can fill those shoes.
No, they're just too big.
I'll be brief. You are proposing to spend $339,250 of one-time COVID relief money on what appears to me to be a recurring expense. Are you legally allowed to do that? Sure. Is it prudent policy? Absolutely not. Whether Edgenuity is a good software or not, and whether it makes sense to put kids that have failed with real live certified teachers in front of a computer and hope that's a replacement is good policy or not. I hope there are alternatives, because computers don't work well even when there are live people on the other ends of them. But my main point, and the reason I'm up here talking, is every cent you spend of ESSER money is gone. And when the ESSER money is gone, if you've gotten in the habit of doing these various contracts, then that's going to come back and bite the general fund long after the visitor from Maryland has gone on to his next position. And that it was not a disparaging remark. We all know he's only been anywhere 3 years or shorter.
Now you making it disparaging.
And he is still a
Dr.
resident of
Finney.
Maryland.
Thank you, Dr. Finney.
You're welcome. Please think carefully as you spend ESSER money as to whether that is the best use of ESSER money, or whether there is something that would be more appropriate as a use of one-time money. Thank you for your time.
And now, Sister Corley.
Rhonda Corley, parent and disabilities advocate nationally. My child had ran, so because we're not in ADA compliance and we have no room for him, when he take off running, I have to run behind him. But to talk about this contract and what Ingenuity provides, not just here for our school system, but around the state, is not in ADA compliance, American Disabilities Act compliance. So let me explain that for you. An individual with disability or a child with disability may need to do credit recovery. So hypothetically speaking, if it was my child, let's say he needs to communicate with that educator. He can't because it's a recording. If they had a live person on there, and that person, such as ASU, that we use for our virtual school, they can't provide it neither. The staff don't know American Sign Language. They're not able to provide the information in Braille. If the child is an English language learner, they're not able to provide the information in their native language. That's problematic when you look at children with disabilities that may have any type of neurocognitive impairment that may not be able to communicate their desires, needs, and wants effectively. So when we talk about how Ingenuity do the recordings, that recording does not allow the person to actually be able to pause and actually really truly understand or comprehend, because there's nobody there that could simply break it down and explain. So let me give another example. We discussed the topic earlier while I was on the road here about the resolution. And that resolution, everybody had an opportunity to ask questions and to comment. But that's not a process that students are afforded when they're using Ingenuity. which makes teaching effective hard for children that may need other accommodations, such as writing on a blackboard, or those with cortical visual impairments that cannot have things, so many things distracting on the screen. So when I talk about what things look like that's not in ADA compliance, maybe y'all need to have some parents like myself and others around this school system and around this country that actually hear firsthand from self-advocates as well as individuals with disabilities that we work with ourselves that are not afforded accommodations. We do know that my child attend every single school board meeting, but I'm providing the accommodation for the headphones. But accommodation here for him to be here in person, that's not being afforded. So when I talk about the accommodations, I'm talking about legalities. And I know litigation is another topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, back to the board. Board colleague Ware Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. I had a question around let me see if I can pull this back up, what the goals are and how many students currently successfully complete the online credit course. Let's see, the goal is only to bump it up by about 2 percentage points. Can you answer that?
Dr. Bethley, can you please come up?
Increase the number of students.
Good evening. I cannot give you the specific total number, but this program is mostly for our students that attend our alternative schools. So they utilize this program more than our traditional high school students.
And we've been using this program for how long?
For about 5 years.
So we're tracking this then, if we've been using it for 5 years. Do we know what the percentage increase was last year?
I do not know, but I can have Mr. Brickhouse share that information with you.
Is Mr. Brickhouse here?
No, ma'am.
No, he's not here, Board Member Jackson, but we can get that information for you.
Get it for me. Okay, so, well, yeah, because 2 percentage points doesn't sound like a very large goal if the proposed goal is to increase those that complete the online credit course by 2 percentage points. I'd be curious to know how many are currently completing this online credit course and what that 2% actually amounts to.
We can get that information for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well then, I can't vote to just move this forward as is. I would ask that we move this forward without recommendation. May I make that substitute motion so that we can have the information available when we make a final vote?
Can I get a second? Colleague, I was up in the queue. I'm not going to offer a second because I do continue to have concern about what appears to be a perpetual recurring expense coming out of one-time funds. So for me,
that as well. Mm-hmm.
It just wouldn't make sense for me to second you. Okay, so it appears, I'll ask one more time, can we get a second on the substitute motion?
Can we clarify what that what that substitute motion is? I'm sorry.
To move it forward without recommendation so that we can get the information that I'm asking for.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay. Board colleague Lannis. Thank you. And so then, seeing a request to speak from the board on the substitute motion, now to the public. Seeing no, Dr. Finney.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ward Jackson. Thank you, Mr. Lannis. I would hope the administration takes the opportunity to add relevant material to the backup. And if they don't, then in 2 weeks, I would hope that you would either defer this further down the road or just tell them no. Now that we've learned that this $300,000 or $400,000 is just for alternative schools, that's a pretty alarming expense. So please do vote for the substitute motion. Thank you.
Seeing no Sister Corley.
I was waiting until they commentary is.
You can proceed.
Okay. Karonda Corley, parent, National Disabilities Advocate. In the information that's being requested, I ask that you ask for information regarding what accommodations Ingenuity can provide for the individuals with disabilities. We are very much aware that a large population of the kids that are in the alternative schools are children with disabilities and English language learners. And so I am asking that in the information that Mr. Brickhouse or Dr. Bethley have to provide you, that you do request information regarding accommodations, what accommodations they're providing, how many children with disabilities, how many English language learner children are benefiting from it, and also if they're offering the service of Braille, and if they offer an opportunity for live instruction, because that's imperative and it is pertinent for our children with disabilities. So we do need the accommodation factor because even though children with IDEA, their IEPs may stipulate a lot of the supports that's needed. Children with 504 plans also are supposed to be stipulated what supports and accommodations they need too. So I'm asking for that for those things just to be asked for when you get the information from Mr. Brickhouse, or you can ask for Mr. Brickhouse to provide a nice presentation at the board meeting for everyone to be able to see that information as well. Thank you kindly.
I'm sorry. I've been under anesthesia recently. You know, that causes some forgetfulness, but the backup docs says this is for credit recovery. That's summer school. It's not alternative school. Well, I guess it's summer school. So what are we talking about here? The contract, the memo is talking about summer school. So what are we talking about? And that's not alternative. I mean, yes, they may use it in alternative as well, but it's summer school. Do I need to turn in another card?
Seeing no other public comment, back to the board colleague Gode.
Yes, I just wanted to correct what seems to be a misunderstanding. This is not only for alternative schools. It is used heavily by alternative schools, which makes sense, but it's used by all schools. And so this is not just for alternative schools. And I just wanted to explain, Ms. Ware Jackson, I'm going to vote against the alternate resolution simply because you've made the request for the information. I hope that the superintendent does provide the information, but if he doesn't, we can pull it from the consent agenda at the next meeting and have the discussion. But to go through all of this here, then go through it again, when all the information might be done. I'm just trying to get us out of here earlier instead of being locked in all night for all of this. I'm not against getting the information, but I don't think we need to recommend without action or pass it to the thing without recommendation, because the option to pull is always there if you don't get the information you require. And I strongly support your right to pull it if you don't get the information you require. So I just wanted to explain what I'm doing and why. Thank you.
Okay, and then can I get some clarity on what the contract is for? Is it just for alternative? Okay, the language in the what does the language in the, I admit I looked at the memo and I did not dig through the contract, so I'm leaning on others to show me where in the contract it says alternative and or summer school.
The contract doesn't specify, it allows flexibility with where and how you do it. And so the contract itself lays out a proposal, which if you look at the end of the contract, it's very detailed, right? It doesn't specify summer school or alternative programs. It just allows flexibility for the staff to utilize it how they so choose. And so there's no specificity as to where, if that answers your question. Okay.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you. All righty. Seeing no other requests to speak from the board, board colleague Lannis.
One thing, because me and board colleague Howard are having a really in-depth conversation, and I think it definitely begs the question. I think a lot of onus is being placed on Dr. Bethley right now, but I think that whoever the content creator is, that is the person that should be speaking on this matter, because Dr. Bethley is the person that manages this particular item. And that may go above her purview of what she actually is supposed to manage. So I say this right here is a learning situation that whenever we have these types of meetings and whenever we can anticipate that these types of questions are going to come up, we should always have the correct staff members here ready and prepared to answer these types of questions. That way we don't get bogged down with further questions from our community as well as our school board members. So I say that again. Miss Dr. Bethley, you have done a tremendous job. You did a great job. But this onus right now is on us as a board as well as administration. We have to do a better job of making sure the information is readily available and we have the proper people ready to speak on the item. That way we do not continuously go down this rabbit hole of these constant questions going back and forth. Thank you.
Thank you, colleague Lannis. Seeing no other requests to speak from the board, Madam Secretary, at your earliest convenience, please call the vote. Substitute motion.
This is for the substitute motion.
Please vote. The motion fails.
And moving back to the main motion, we already did board requests to speak, and we went to the public on the main motion. Okay, and so now back to the board, seeing no request to speak from the board. Madam Secretary, please. It didn't post? All righty. Thank you kindly. It's not, it didn't tabulate correctly, I guess. Do you need to redo it? Do we need to redo it? Okay. All right. Now moving forward with item D8. Oh, Jesus. Regular motion.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Now moving forward with item D8, grant management contract extension, recommended action, consideration of a request for the approval of the extension of the grant management contract between EBR Parish School Board and CSRS Tillage in the amount of $300,000 to complete FEMA reimbursements related to the 2016 flood. Can I get a motion? Board colleague Ware Jackson and board colleague Ballou. Seeing no request to speak from the board. Public comment from Sister Corley.
Name is Karonda Corley, parent and national disabilities advocate. I'm just interested on how many times are we gonna ask for an extension? I think this is like the second or third time that we've asked for an extension, and I know that with all of the monies that we've received with COVID, we should have been able to pay it off by now. 2016, this is 2022, it'll be 2023. So exactly when are we looking to actually pay off the money? Because we're asking for an extension. Extension means that we're asking for grace. But if in the essence of asking for grace, are we gonna have interest accruing?
So,
Stop my clock.
Sister Corley,
It's 2.08.
if you would be interested in ceding your time, we could get someone to explain that what is actually happening is very different from what you're describing.
Can somebody please explain that? I'm all for it. Come on, Mr. Godet.
We have money due to us from the federal government, and so this is continuing the contract with CSRS to continue to try to recoup the money from the federal government. So the federal government owes us like $6 million, and this is trying to extend the contract with CSRS to recapture the $6 million plus from the federal government. So it's 100% different than what you just described.
Thank you. Now, I only had 3 seconds, so I can start back. I appreciate that, Mr. Godet. Now, since we said that, if we're recouping money, will they be giving us interest on the monies that they owe us?
I said this was from the federal government. That
Sometimes,
answers your question.
because sometimes the federal government will actually give you, when they give you monies that they owe you, sometimes they will actually give you interest on that total. So I just think that it would be a friendly thought to ask them if they would give interest. And I can give a point of clarity. So if you have individuals that file for their income taxes, I'm just giving you a point, right? So if they file for their income taxes and they're owed monies, but they didn't file it on time, and they wait a few years, and then they within the 3-year time frame, of course, and they file. They
FEMA does
actually
not
could
work that way.
sometimes get interest. So I'm just asking to just inquire about that. And then once we get the monies back, can we please bring it to like a nice neighborhood?
Ma'am, you have to realize that
friendly-
money is-
hold my money. My clock.
That money has been spent. We're trying to get reimbursement.
Don't hold my money. Hold my clock, April. I'm sorry, Mr. Godet. Go ahead. It was 0.53.
We're just trying to get reimbursement.
Okay. So once we get that monies back, can we please just show everybody in the public, just in the spirit of transparency, where the monies was spent, so that everyone can see that this was monies owed and monies spent, and that we're recouping it for monies that we were owed that we have spent. And I think that that would allow everyone to be graciously appreciative, like I am. See, I appreciated you, Mr. Golday. You know, I can actually tell you when I appreciate something. So thank you.
Thank you kindly, board colleague Lannis.
I just want to second my board colleague, Mr. Mike Goday. You cannot draw interest on supplemental insurance money. This is money from 2016. We saw a similar situation that happened with Glen Oaks High School, where the first part of the school, where 80% of the school was damaged. We had to go and apply for those funds. If you don't apply for them, you lose them. In fact, we lost a few million because we missed the deadline, if I'm not mistaken, by 2 weeks. So if we don't apply for those funds, we won't be able to get them. This is simply the federal government giving us money that we applied for to go towards insurance for buildings that were destroyed or severely damaged due to the flood of 2016. So I just want to clarify and add more to what board colleague Mike Goday said.
Thank you kindly, and board colleague Goday.
Yes, and I saw Ms. Lopez get up. I want to assure everyone that all of that money has been accounted for. It is in an accrued liability on our books, so we know exactly where it was spent, exactly how much it was there. And as that money comes back in, it wipes out those accrued liabilities. So the financial aspects of this are all properly recorded and everything is in the right spot. If you go look at our reports, you'll see, I don't know what we call it, but there is an accrued liability account that is money owed us from FEMA. So all of that's in good shape. We just need to get the federal government to pay us. That's the biggest issue. And if you look at areas like Baker, who have not done a very good job on this, they haven't gotten paid a penny yet, I don't think, since the 2016 flood, and that's why they can't rebuild their high schools. So in my opinion, we've done an exemplary job of getting FEMA reimbursement and getting our schools repaired and getting our kids back in the classroom. So, you know, this is not something bad. This is just something we got to make sure we pursue so we can get as much money back as we can. Thank you.
All right, board colleague Dyson.
At one point, when I knew we were having some difficulties getting reimbursement, I put together a meeting of our financial team and superintendent and invited Congressman Garrett Graves to come, and he helped facilitate and really push and with CSRS as well at the table, and we got it worked through. But this is not easy. This unfortunately, to get this money requires a lot of work and a lot of people that are pushing for results. So I appreciate the hard work and the persistent nature of this, and we've got to see this through and get our money reimbursed. So thank you for the job you're doing. If you need my support again, I will be happy to help and broker another meeting for us. So thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
And now moving forward with item D9. Recommended action, request for authorization to design. Oh, well, we had to renumber it. Okay. Recommended action, request for authorization to design, advertise, accept, and award the contract for construction of the classroom addition at Wildwood Elementary to the lowest bid meeting the project specification. The Wildwood Elementary School classroom addition is per the A Plan to Improve Facilities Technology, Discipline, and Compensation in the East Baton Rouge Parish School System, the plan, as revised through February 22, 2018. Bids can be rejected for just cause in accordance with the Louisiana Public Bid Law, Louisiana Revised Statute Title 38, Chapter 10. And so the recommended action, could have stopped reading after the first sentence, request for authorization. Can I get a motion to request? Thank you. Goday and Dyson. All right, and Board Colleague Dyson.
As we go through these tax plan projects, I know that we were delayed in land acquisition, and I'm trying to find out if you can give me some information on when we have had to jump over a project and it has been delayed, and now we're carrying on with the rest. I'd like to know, are we going to be fast tracking the site, the facility at the South Baton Rouge Elementary or elementary middle, depending on the grade configuration, and how does that play into, how does it get back into the queue?
We'll let CSRs come up and speak to that, Ms. Dyson.
Thank you very much.
In terms of the new elementary school for the southern part, yes, we are fast tracking. Now, even with fast tracking, there are some details to work out with the partnership with BRIC. So that CEA is in process of being created for y'all's approval. They also are going through their budget approvals. So I'm actually waiting on a timeline from them. I think the anticipated time frame is January. But again, I'm waiting on that timeline. So once we get started, yes, we are trying to fast track it. At this point, I think really our plan is that August 2025 school year. But again, if we can get everything rolling with that partnership, the CEA and their budget, then we may still be able to improve upon that.
Thank you. Our overcrowded facilities are, just in serious need of this. So I just want to make sure that we're getting back into the lineup of getting that project going as soon as possible.
So I think as soon as we get the green light on everything, the plan is to fast track it and have it open as soon as possible.
And Brett understands that we are trying to push this one through.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Board Colleague Ware Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Now, this is for 6 classrooms, right? For Wildwood?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And this is not directed to you, except for that part. Okay. Dr. Narcisse, I had a couple of questions from people in that area asking around, asking about the classroom, the plans for the classrooms. It's my understanding that there was a bilingual program that that was at that school that was phased out and kind of, without a lot of input from them. And it served native Spanish speakers. So the question from them was, will the district be bringing back that Spanish program that served those kids? And is that the goal of these 6 classrooms? Or do we have a goal for these new classrooms?
Board Member Jackson, I can't answer that as of right now because I need to, we're reviewing all of our programs, so it's something we can look into. But I don't want to give a response without us, making sure we look at everything in detail.
Mm-hmm. Do you have an idea of when you might have that answer?
We're currently doing program review and all those things, so we can be able to take a look at it. But for me to say we're going to put a program there, we'd have to do a little bit more information.
Okay, so I guess then my question is around this comprehensive plan that we've been looking at trying to do for a very long time. Can we don't have to have a complete plan, and I know I've talked about this before, but that plan where we have the map with everything on it and all of the programs, so that when we have something like this come to the table, we can see what's going on and we can get a better answer to questions like that.
Yes. We can do that. We're in the progress of working on that. So
Do you have a goal for when that plan could be? I don't mean the complete thing, but something that we can use temporarily
to
so
drive
that-
this decision.
Yeah, so that when we bring things forward like this, we can see what's going on. We have a good idea of where we are and what we have.
I want to give you the right timeline for that. That's why I want to give you a response. I know right now the team has been reviewing what that timeline has been, so I can give you a more accurate information after having discussions with them.
Okay.
Okie doke. Board colleague Gode.
Yes, I just wanted to bring up one quick point. I realize it's slightly off topic because it's not Wildwood, but we never did really finish the discussion about the grade configuration for the new high school and the new elementary school. So before we get very far down the road on that, we need to revisit that discussion, because I don't want it to come out and say, oh, well, the plans have been made and it's this, and to change it is too difficult, because we've never made a decision yet. So whatever, before that goes to the planning stage, we need to get together and make sure we make a decision on what those schools are going to look like before they start putting pencil to paper. Thank you.
Just want to mention that La Belle Air Elementary is the sister campus for that Spanish not dual language. It's another term. There's a slight difference, but that both campuses were benefiting from that, and I just want to make sure that they are considered in that conversation as well, because they both have very diverse campuses. La Belle Air is almost 30% Hispanic, Spanish speaking. So thank you kindly. Seeing no other requests to speak from the board, public comment, Sister Karonda Corley.
Rhonda Corley, parent and National Disabilities Advocate. My only concern with any of our projects is making sure that they're in ADA compliance for the individuals that may matriculate into the building or into the classroom that have a disability, staff or children alike. We don't ensure that things are in compliance with ADA, such as I've always talked about our newly renovated room that we're using currently for the school board meeting. I wish we'll go back to PDC building, because at least we have another room where parents, just like myself and others, can actually have their children. We don't have the space in the room in here. And of course, my child is a runner, and he sometimes runs behind y'all. And it's painful for me to have to run behind him and get the police involved to try to help me with catching him. So I do think that ensuring that whomever is doing our contracts and renovations, that we always make sure that there's an ADA coordinator involved, and making sure that those facilities and rooms are in ADA compliance for all. Not just those using wheelchairs, but those that may use 4-point walkers, those that may be blind, or have any type of visual impairment, etc. So I just think that we just need to entertain that for every single contract. I know that diversity, equity, equality, and inclusion is supposed to be in all of our contracts, but I just want to make sure that it's in all our contracts, but I want to make sure that it's entailed in every project that we do. So thank you so much, and I hope that y'all let me recoup my 1 minute and the next topic.
Thank you kindly. Dr. Finney.
Thank you. $3.5 million is a lot of money. When you spend that on Wildwood's campus, as directed by the tax plan, that may be the last time for several years you spend a lot of money on that campus. So it's worth being very patient and deliberate and making sure that the money that's spent is spent as effectively as possible. There still isn't a master plan. Maybe this project doesn't have to wait for the master plan to be completed, although it wouldn't hurt. But I think you need to ask the administration to answer some important questions before you approve moving very far forward with this plan. Are there enough spaces anticipated to go down to 4-year-old classrooms for everybody that wants it? Are you going to continue with the model of having elementary schools go through 8th grade for the students that would rather not move to middle school? Does this site need exactly 6 classrooms? Does it need 8? What improvements, as Ms. Corley suggested, might it need throughout the rest of the campus? Are there any improvements that should happen with regard to security? As I recall, there are classroom doors that aren't secured by fences from what I remember the last time I drove by there. If they're happening at the same time, even if the funding source is different, there's probably some efficiency to come from deploying all of the construction that site needs to have happen at the same time. And when you're changing the capacity of a building, it's worth at least considering whether attendance zones need to be tweaked. The shapes of the attendance zones in that part of the community are rather strange, and they have some narrow pinch points, and you're maybe not doing the best job of making the schools accessible to the people that are closest to them. It's a bigger question of whether you need to build a new school somewhere in that neighborhood, and you probably do, and it has to be a public-owned school, not a charter school. And then there's also the question of whether the administration is still intent on putting a focused choice K through 8 school or pre-K through 8 or K through 5 or whatever at the Kenilworth Middle site when the charter school leaves there. So my suggestion would be you defer this until December or maybe even January, let the administration answer some of those questions, give a more complete proposal to the public to think about, have some meetings at Wildwood. Don't just put a cookie cutter 6 classroom building in there, because there's a great opportunity to do wonderful things with $3.5 million of the public's money. Thanks for your time.
Thank you kindly. Seeing no other requests to speak on this item, no other public comment on this item, and seeing no request to speak from the board, Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Moving forward with item D10, contract. Recommended action is a consideration of a request for the approval of a contract between East Baton Rouge Parish School Board and Blunt General Contractors in the amount of $249,000 to relocate and set up modular buildings at Cedar Crest Southmore Elementary for additional classrooms. Can I get a motion? Board colleague Howard and board colleague Ballou. Seeing no request to speak from the board and public comment from Dr. James Finney.
Thank you. I saw nothing in the backup material that supports the need to put temporary buildings on this site. I assume that there is a perception that the school is overcrowded. That perception might fit the reality, or it might be that there are programs there that have kids going farther than they might need to from another site. So before you put temporary buildings on a campus, I would ask that you demand a little bit more information from the administration. I'm just guessing, but if it's November now I don't think that putting temporary buildings in there is going to do much for a space crunch during this school year. And so again, I think it might be worth waiting a month or two. Remember, you're spending the public's money, you're taking care of each neighborhood's centerpiece. It doesn't look good when you just throw a bunch of temporary buildings in, and these things aren't cheap. You just unanimously decided we're going to build permanent brick and mortar to replace some T buildings. And now in this item, you're going to put some new T buildings in somewhere else. At least if you're going to do that, make sure that it's warranted. Make sure that that is the most overcrowded elementary school and not just where somebody is clamoring the loudest. But I remember at least the original tax plan, maybe the second, the whole principle was we don't want T buildings, let's build permanent buildings. So why do we still have T buildings at, I don't know, 20 or 30 campuses? I haven't looked lately, but there are way too many T buildings in way too many places for way too long. Maybe you absolutely need this project, but make the administration convince you that it must happen and must happen this school year, and there isn't a better way to accommodate the students that school or its neighboring schools need to educate. Thank you.
And Sister Karonda Corley.
Karonda Corley, parent, disabilities advocate. I'm gonna be very brief. T buildings are not necessarily in ADA compliance for our children and staff that have disabilities. When we get T buildings, we do not ensure that they're accessible for all, and that's problematic. I know that some T buildings they're also put in places that may when it rains, hold water in those areas, which also makes it hard for individuals with disabilities to actually be able to matriculate into that building. So I'm asking that when you're talking about T buildings, I remember McKinley Middle Magnet. The principal did not want T buildings there. And so the children with disabilities are in a closet that they converted into a classroom. So I do ask that when we do these type of things, that we make sure that all individuals, especially our individuals with disabilities, can matriculate safely into those facilities. That's what I'm asking. So my answer to T buildings would be absolutely not, unless you can have them where they're directly on the ground and actually have the ramp, etc., added so that the individuals can be safe. Also, make sure that those T buildings have bathrooms, because not all of the T buildings have bathrooms, which makes it hard if the individual with disability is in a T building and it is the furthest place away from a bathroom. So that causes our individuals with disabilities to have unnecessary accidents on themselves. So I think that y'all should really take that into consideration, hold this contract up and actually address those issues. And once you have the information addressing those issues, then bring it back and let the public know what your answers are. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment on this item, back to the board. Board colleague Ware Jackson.
Dr. Narcisse, I'm back to a question that I posed earlier, around the importance of having more information. I'm looking at this and we see just a contract, and I understand the contract and actually, have a lot of respect for those that are involved in the contract. However, we don't know why we're doing this. What's the capacity? Have they grown so that we need more space? Can you give us a little more background as to why we need these T buildings here, and where are they being moved from? Did I miss that piece in the backup?
So yes, the school has grown. We can provide you that information. Where the actual location is, we can get that for you to give you. Mr. Morales, I know is not here. Oh, actually, Mr. Bell is here. Mr. Bell, you mind answering that question for Board Member Jackson?
Greetings, Dr. Narcisse, board members. My name is James Bell. I'm a new member of facilities. Mr. Morales could not be here this evening. However, we do have the architect, Mr. Brad Gayran, who can bring us up to speed on this specific project. Mr. Gayran?
Good evening, board members, superintendent. To answer that question, this building was actually moved at the end of 2020 to this campus in anticipation of the need on this. At Cedar Crest Southmore, the building has been sitting there until funds were available to put it in place, which happened and were approved earlier this year to do so. We put it out to bid a couple months ago. It is going to be situated adjacent to the other modular buildings on campus. It will be tied in with walkways, canopies, ADA ramps, so it will be ADA accessible and all, but it will be adjacent to the other buildings that are there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Seeing no other requests to speak from the board, Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Moving forward with item D11, litigation. The recommended action is consideration of a request for the approval of the recommendation from General Counsel Gwen Shamlin in the following matters. Matter A is Mary Young versus EBR School System et al. Docket number 696326, Section 23 in the 19th JDC, Parish of East Baton Rouge, State of Louisiana, and to provide for related matters. And then matter B, Leslie Stevens versus Kimberly Johnson et al. Suit number 644-011. And that number is with correction to a noted typo that was brought to our attention earlier. So again, that suit number is 644-011, Section 21 of the 19th JDC of the Parish of East Baton Rouge, State of Louisiana, and to provide for related matters. Can I get a motion? Board colleague Howard and Lannis. Board Counsel Shamlin.
Actually, you addressed the issue. I wanted to make sure that the suit number was corrected properly. You took care of that. Thank you.
No problem. Board colleague Ware Jackson.
Question, Mr. Shamlin. On average, what is our annual budget? Do we for litigation?
I don't have that in front of me. I can ask Ms. Lopez to maybe provide some detail on that. When you say litigation, it's a little bit layered because litigation encompasses more than just settlements. It encompasses workman's compensation. It encompasses a number of areas, including attorney's fees. So I don't want to give you the wrong number, but I'll let Ms. Lopez speak to that.
Thank you.
So off the top of my head. So litigation charges in your general fund budget, which is under the school board budget with Mr. Shamlin, is about $450,000 a year. Workers' compensation is funded through employees. So employees, every time they receive a paycheck, they pay certain percentages of workers' compensation, unemployment. That portion goes into the workers' compensation. It's about $200,000 a month, give or take. Your risk management fund is funded through the general fund, and we put in approximately 2.4 to 2.6 every June to fund that account.
It's a pretty big budget.
It is.
Huge, yeah. Yeah. All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
Board colleague Gode.
Yes, thank you. And Mr. Shamlin, my typical question on here, we don't need a summary report right now, but we still are making progress on outfitting cameras and things for our buses, I hope.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You actually requested that. Transportation provided some preliminary numbers that I shared with the superintendent, so now we're looking at how we can actually make that happen.
Great, thank you very much. Because everyone I've talked to in this arena says that the cost of the cameras is greatly offset just by your ability to provide a better defense in lawsuits. I talked to several lawyers who represent trucking companies and things like that, and they say the return on investment on cameras is tremendous. So I hope that we can get that in pretty fast. Thank you.
Agreed.
All right. Public comment, Dr. James Finney.
Because this is futile, I will be brief. But I wish that every time a litigation item first came upon your agenda, there would be a very brief description as to the nature of the dispute. For example, just saying that for the first one, there's an allegation that on a certain date there was an accident involving a school bus and a privately owned vehicle. That would be helpful to inform the public. And then, and the other one was a bus accident too, apparently, that's being alleged. The other thing that I think would be useful is once these cases come to the resolution, if the public was made aware of what the settlement was. Clearly, we shouldn't know what your recommended strategy is now, but it would be nice if we find out later in some summary fashion what the outcomes of these various litigation items were. Thank you for your time.
Seeing no other public comment and seeing no other requests to speak from the board, Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
All right, and we have, before we proceed to the announcements of meetings, we have a request from board colleague Dyson.
Yes, throughout this meeting, I have had technology issues with this computer and it's bouncing me off and on, and I'm trying to scramble to get back on. One of my votes early in the meeting was recorded incorrectly, and I'd like to make sure that I can get that corrected on the record. I guess that I was bumped off trying to get back on, and somehow I may have pushed the wrong, but I saw that at the time, but we were already into the next item. And so I went and asked General Counsel, and he said I just needed to bring it up before the meeting was over so that we could get it corrected on the record. And so I would like to, do I need to make a motion and then, or just if no one objects, that I can go ahead and get that corrected?
Yes, ma'am. Per Robert's rules, you make the request. The chair will ask the board if there are any objections. If
Okay.
there are none, then the change is made.
Okay. Well, I would like to request that.
What?
For which,
It's my vote on the number one, D1.
All right. And you want it changed, just for the record, you want it
Yeah.
changed from,
It was a nay, and it was intended to be a yay.
all right. And then are there any objections from? Seeing no objections from board colleagues, then that should be fine.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Now, moving forward with item E1, announcements of meetings. The regular board meeting is to be held on November 17th, 2022 at 5:00 p.m. in the central office boardroom. And then the next committee of the whole meeting shall be held on December 1st, 2022 at 5:00 p.m. Can we get a motion to adjourn? All right. right. In his most diligent duty and role of all board meetings, we are adjourned. Thank you, Brother Goday.